As a content creator, one of the most important lessons that I've learned is to never take your audience for granted, and to listen to what they have to say both through critiques and suggestions. I've come to make many a video based on the request of the wonderful comments that I receive on these videos, hence videos on Burnout Paradise, Need for Speed Carbon, and Pro Street. These works came from many comments asking for such games to have a spotlight on this channel, and I've always loved taking these suggestions into account in order to play games that I haven't played before or covered before. And yes, this is all just to preface something. There's one request that I receive all the time, and frankly, it baffles me, and it leaves me confused as to why it's such a popular topic. This would be a re-review of Need For Speed Unbound a year and a half later. As of Unbound's launch, the game has received 7 volumes of content drops periodically, which adds a few cars, customization, and that's mostly it. I logged onto Unbound to see what's changed in so long, and what people have been clamoring to see covered in a new video. I started up the single player, looked for new events, and there was nothing. I went back to the garage, looked for new cars to buy, and still nothing. I went to customize a car, looking for new rims, and still nothing to be seen. I knew I'd updated my games because all the loading screens had new cars, and I noticed the shop icon in the startup menu which wasn't there before. Trust me, we'll get to that later. So it's safe to say I was really confused as to why nothing had actually changed about my game. And after a bit of digging online, something you should never have to do if a game is well made, I found out the reason why. Single player, the version of the game that I actually play, wasn't going to receive any changes at all. All of this new content was multiplayer exclusive. So, in other words, the version of the game that I play, the version of the game where I grinded up enough money to buy every car and upgrade them all, is being completely neglected in favor of the mode that I haven't touched at all. What this means is because I'm someone who prefers single-player games over multiplayer just on the basis of preference, this means I get none of the new content, and neither does anyone else who prefers single-player. So if you want the short answer, the reason I won't be touching Need for Speed Unbound again is due to the utterly absurd decision to split the multiplayer and single-player into 2 separate games, meaning that I don't have access to my content in the other, so therefore, I'm not going to play it. But oh well, might as well play multiplayer to unlock these new cars that are unavailable to single player, and see just what's different. And upon jumping into multiplayer and having a look, I was utterly befuddled by what I saw. In order to try out this new content, I'd have to trudge through yet another battle pass. And not a free one, mind you. No, $15 to get, let's count here, 1, 2... Oh, no, that's it. Okay. 2 new cars. 2 new cars for $15. If anyone is here to defend this, I'm sorry, but no, this is utterly inexcusable. Especially when we compare to the competition. Let's say, for instance, I wanted to spend $15 on Horizon 5. For that money, I could buy a pack containing 7 cars, none of which I have to needlessly grind for. Oh, and I can actually use them in the version of the game that I play, because despite all of Horizon 5's many flaws, at least there isn't some needless split between multiplayer and single player. There's a lot of people who don't like Horizon 5's modern car packs, and I understand where that's coming from. But if you dislike what Forza is doing in terms of monetization, then you should hate Unbound tenfold for providing substantially less content for the same price. If this isn't bad enough, I decided to take a look through the rest of Unbound's shop to see what was on offer. You can buy a single Audi for $8. One car, $8. Alternatively, you can buy 2 more Audis for only $5. What a steal. That's if you don't consider that one of them is ripped straight from Need for Speed Heat, the base game of Need for Speed Heat. They want you to pay for a car that we've had in the launch of the previous game. Speaking of paying for things in the previous game, wasn't this $9 nostalgia bait pack that was also in the base game of Heat? If I see a single comment that defends this by saying, oh, but the Audis weren't in Unbound's base due to licensing, need I remind you of the licensing problem with Mitsubishi in Forza Horizon 4? When the rights were reacquired, we got a free DLC containing all of the Mitsubishis previously seen in Horizon 3. Need I also remind you, when Forza was undergoing licensing problems with Stellantis, after reacquiring those rights, a large majority of the Stellantis cars were just shadow dropped into the auto show, and the rest distributed into the playlist as free content. This isn't something to praise Forza for, because this is just the bare minimum, but Unbound, no. They must instead use their licensing issues as a way to punish us, the players, by having to buy these things that should have been in the base game but weren't due to the complication hell of licensing, instead making this our problem that we have to pay for. There's no defense here. This is EA using what little faith that they have left of their diehard fans to scrounge any little dollar out of them that they can, and it's ludicrously pathetic. Oh, and before I forget, just look at this. $25 for a body kit. Need I repeat myself? Because that's just $25 for a body kit. And there's 3 of them. $75 for 3 body kits. There are no words to describe this. Just in case you're wondering, none of this comes with the highest tier of the game that you can buy, which I did, by the way. No matter what version of Unbound you've got, you have to pay for all of this and grind for all of this if you want the new content. Initially, I was just gonna write a short video on why, if this game needed updates to sustain itself, it has failed as a well-made video game. However, this sheer greed has completely turned my attention away from that and towards how utterly inexcusable this is. If you're watching this, I hope you can come to the conclusion that this is a complete scam, and to not support any content that this game releases until whoever it is making these decisions can get their act together and actually think about their consumers. Spending ridiculous amounts of money for a mere 2 cars. Spending money at all for content that was free in the previous game. And of course, $75 for 3 body kits. Would you rather a well-made AAA game that you could play for hundreds of hours? Or 3 body kits in Need For Speed Unbound? Would you rather go to the clothing store and buy a really nice jacket that you'll wear plenty when you go out? Or 3 body kits in Need For Speed Unbound? I'm not going to stop harping on about this, because $75 for 3 body kits is so laughable I can't help but laugh at it. On a more serious note though, do not support this. Do not support a company who wants nothing more than to scam you out of your money for the most absurd things like licensing and body kits. This game, of course, will still be updated in the future, but I don't care. The stance I made in 2022 has not changed, because the version of the game that I played hasn't changed either. I'm not going to play the multiplayer because everything that I worked for is on the single player side, which has been abandoned. I am not going to get this new content because the greed is not something even worth paying attention to. Why should I ever glance at this game when Forza has stepped up their game from their atrocious state to adding at a minimum 5 new cars every month for free? Why would I consider putting effort into this game when the Crew Motorfest is casually dropping new car models into the auto show regularly with new story missions that are enjoyable? Speaking of which, have you seen this new lowrider rhythm game? This is the kind of creativity that I like to see. Even if Unbound turns around and adds a boatload of free well-made content in the next update, which it won't, I don't care. EA has shown their hand. They've shown what they think of us as players, and they have spat in our faces and demanded money for content that we had 5 years ago. Why should I, or you, or anyone, even consider talking about such a scumbag decision? There will be no re-review, and I don't recommend anyone else to do so either. Let this game die a slow, pathetic death. Would you rather 19 cans of Pringles or 3 body kits in Need For Speed Unbound?